In July 2026, cries of grief echoed through a small village in Bangladesh. Samrat, a young man, had been found dead, his entire body turning bluish-purple, with 5 deep bite marks left by a cobra. But it did not end there. Just one day later, right beneath a tree in the middle of his yard, 5 more snakes appeared. Terrified, the villagers called in Imran Hosai, a snake catcher with 20 years of experience. He dropped to his knees and began digging into a burrow beneath the damp soil. The first snake thrashed wildly as he pulled it out. Then came the second, then the third. But when the final layer of soil was broken apart, a large head suddenly shot forward. 2 long fangs sank straight into Imran's thigh. The villagers had to carry him away for emergency treatment in critical condition. But that snake-filled burrow was only a tiny part of a much larger disaster. Every year, as many as 700,000 people in Bangladesh are bitten by snakes. Some of these snakes need only 30 minutes to kill, leaving thousands of people dead while there is little they can do. But this nightmare may soon come to an end. Recently, officials have considered releasing one of the world's most aggressive predators, an animal with knife-sharp teeth capable of eating both humans and venomous snakes. The idea seems so perfect that officials agreed to it, until scientists discovered a hidden danger that could make the plan even worse than the original problem. Can you believe it? Every single day in Bangladesh, as many as 1,900 people are bitten by snakes. More than 6,000 people die each year, making Bangladesh the 3rd worst affected country in the world by this crisis. And the victims are not explorers venturing deep into the jungle. They could be a farmer working in a field, a woman walking to collect water, or an elderly person sleeping inside their own home. Bangladesh's hot, humid climate, combined with thousands of rivers and waterways, means snakes can be found almost everywhere. There are 82 species of snakes in the country, including 27 venomous species capable of delivering deadly bites. The problem has become so alarming that neighboring India once even considered releasing giant crocodiles along the India-Bangladesh border to stop venomous snakes from crossing. But half a world away, in the murky waters of the Amazon, there is a completely different kind of predator. It has no venom and no enormous body, only rows of sharp triangular teeth, and when hungry, piranhas can attack almost any animal. So if thousands of them suddenly appeared in Bangladesh, what would happen to the snakes? In theory, collecting piranhas from the Amazon would not be particularly difficult. So why do thousands of people in Bangladesh still die from snake bites every year? The problem is that before people can go looking for the snakes, floodwaters have already carried them straight into human communities. Take a look at the village of Nola on satellite imagery and switch the date from April, when the fields are still dry and scorched under the sun, to October. The entire landscape changes. Murky floodwater covers the fields, seeping into cracks in the ground, rat burrows, and dense vegetation that normally serve as shelter for snakes. As the water continues to rise, the snakes are forced out of their burrows and natural hiding places. They begin moving onto raised field edges, village roads, house yards, and any patch of higher ground that remains above the water. But the people cannot simply leave. To keep food on the table and earn an income, they still have to wade into the flooded fields, lift rice plants that have been knocked down, and tend their crops in muddy water that can reach their knees. Visibility is almost zero, while rice fields provide snakes with water, cover, and an abundant supply of food. A branch, a clump of grass, or a snake lying motionless beneath the water can look almost identical. Many people do not realize the danger is there until the fangs have already sunk into their leg. Part of the danger also comes from a false sense of security. Many people still assume that snakes mainly live on land, but in reality, many species are excellent swimmers and can easily move through flooded rice fields, canals, ponds, and other bodies of water. Studies in Bangladesh have found that around 27% of snake bites occur in water, 24% occur in fields, and more than half of victims are bitten while working outdoors in fields or flooded areas. So when the idea emerged of introducing a predator to eliminate venomous snakes, people immediately hoped that this might finally be the solution they had been waiting for. If you accidentally release piranhas into a swimming pool, from a distance they would look almost like harmless aquarium fish, only about 6 to 12 inches long, with flat, laterally compressed bodies. But move closer and look directly into their mouths. Their teeth are all they need, and they could turn on everything else in that pool. When piranhas attack, they bite quickly, pull back hard, and can tear away part of their prey before coming in for another strike. If a fish is injured, thrashing in the water, or releasing the scent of food, other piranhas can quickly gather around. These tiny predators can turn almost any vulnerable animal into a feeding frenzy within moments. Would piranhas actually see snakes as prey? If their diet were limited to fish and animal carcasses, then snakes would not really be on the menu. Well, at least not while they were still alive. But there is some good news. Piranhas are not particularly picky eaters. Their feeding behavior depends heavily on whatever food is available. They respond to movement, size, and how vulnerable a potential target appears, rather than simply what species it is. That means their range of potential prey may be much broader than most people realize. There is even a case described in the scientific literature in which a partially digested water snake was found inside the stomach of a piranha. So under certain conditions, piranhas really can attack this type of target. But why try to reduce the risk everywhere when there is one specific place where the danger is concentrated the most? If most snake bites happen in a particular environment, then that is exactly where the efforts should be focused. And when people try to solve the problem only in a general way, those solutions may never even reach the places where the risk is highest. Those places are the flooded rice fields, where people have to spend hours working every day. Basically, if we want to change anything, we have to start with those fields. Otherwise, none of this makes any sense. But that is only the first problem. A rice field is not the Amazon River. It is shallow, the water is divided into separate plots, and most importantly, the water level is constantly changing. But if you look at Bangladesh in the middle of the rainy season, the idea suddenly starts to make a lot more sense. Fields that were dry just a few months earlier are transformed into a vast expanse of murky water stretching toward the horizon. The raised boundaries between fields disappear beneath the surface. Small ponds connect with canals, and in many places, the water can remain for weeks or even months. During that time, the fields essentially become temporary aquatic ecosystems, capable of supporting fish and many other aquatic organisms. So could piranhas actually survive there? In theory, yes. But this is exactly where an even bigger problem appears. Food is everywhere in flooded rice fields. There are trapped small fish, insect larvae, shrimp, aquatic animals, and organic matter scattered throughout the water. For a piranha, it would be almost like walking into a buffet that has already been laid out. And predators generally go after whatever is easiest to catch. If there is a small, defenseless fish right in front of it, why would a piranha bother chasing a long, powerful, and potentially dangerous snake? It would not even need to make the effort. Basically, if food is abundant, piranhas might not bother with the snakes at all. I grew up hearing stories that piranhas were so bloodthirsty that if you dipped an arm into the water, you could pull it back out seconds later with a horrifying injury. That image has survived for more than a century. Even U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, in his book Through the Brazilian Wilderness, described them as the most ferocious fish in the world, accompanied by terrifying footage of a cow being torn apart in moments. So if thousands of fish like that were released into the flooded fields of Bangladesh, another far more practical question immediately comes to mind. What if the snakes are not the first victims? Could humans become the target instead? The truth may completely surprise you. Piranhas are nothing like the blood-crazed monsters portrayed in Hollywood. One review documented 711 piranha bite incidents, and as many as 82% were only minor bites, defensive or warning behavior that often occurred when people accidentally stepped near their nests during the breeding season. The good news is that the reality is far more complicated than the popular image suggests. Even under stressful conditions, piranhas still do not see humans as their primary prey. An adult human is simply too large, creates too much movement, and looks nothing like the small fish or aquatic animals piranhas normally feed on. They generally choose to stay away. Piranhas only become reckless, highly aggressive predators when four conditions come together: hunger, stress, shrinking water levels, and intense competition for survival. Even attacks on snakes are most likely under those extreme conditions, when the snake is already exhausted, trapped, or weakened. But now consider Bangladesh. During flood season, when rice fields disappear beneath vast stretches of murky water, thousands of farmers have to spend hours standing in flooded fields harvesting rice. This is also where Russell's vipers can remain hidden beneath the water and vegetation, ready to deliver a potentially deadly bite. People live with constant fear, so desperate for a solution that the idea of releasing piranhas can begin to sound reasonable. But that creates an even harder question. If food in those flooded fields eventually runs out, pushing the piranhas into an extreme state of hunger strong enough to make them hunt snakes, would the farmer's feet and legs still be safe beneath the water? An idea that seemed almost perfect could end up creating a problem far more dangerous than the one it was supposed to solve. The plan has never actually been carried out. But hypothetically, if Bangladesh really decided to release piranhas, which species would they choose? After all, not all piranhas are the same, and neither is their behavior. Choose the wrong species, and the consequences could become completely unpredictable. The most obvious candidate would probably be the red-bellied piranha. It is one of the best-known and most extensively studied piranha species in South America. Adults typically grow to several dozen centimeters in length, with 2 rows of razor-sharp triangular teeth and a diet that includes fish, insects, and many other aquatic animals. Studies have also shown that they often gather in groups. Although schooling is not simply a hunting strategy, it also helps protect them from predators. But how would you transport thousands of these predators from the rushing tributaries of the Amazon halfway around the world to Bangladesh? That alone would be a logistical nightmare. Bringing the fish into the country would require international import permits, layers of government approval, and extensive biosecurity inspections. That means more risk, more money, and a huge number of logistical problems. And there is another issue. Red-bellied piranhas are not native to Bangladesh. They belong to South American ecosystems. You cannot simply dump an invasive species out of a truck into a rice field and hope everything goes according to plan. They require water temperatures to remain around 75 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, sufficient oxygen levels, and careful handling to avoid severe stress from sudden disturbances. And once they arrived in Bangladesh, you could not simply close your eyes and pour buckets of fish straight into flooded rice fields. The water there can be extremely murky and mixed with fertilizers and agricultural chemicals. Without a strict acclimation process, the result might not be an army of snake killers at all. It could simply be thousands of dead fish floating across the surface of the fields. By this point, you have probably realized that the idea of releasing fish to eliminate cobras is not really feasible at all. Piranhas are not born with an instinct to hunt snakes. Like any opportunistic predator, they usually go after whatever is easiest to tear apart. Small fish, insects, or animal carcasses that are not fighting back. A fast-moving, aggressive, venomous cobra is hardly an ideal target. Release piranhas into rice fields, and the fish may simply ignore the snakes and instead begin wiping out native aquatic species that have little ability to defend themselves. And the remarkable thing is that Bangladesh has already seen the beginning of this scenario play out in real life. A study by Bangladeshi scientists reported that piranhas were introduced into the country from Thailand around the year 2000, initially arriving at the Ghazi fish complex in Khulna. When farming Thai pangas became less attractive, some fish traders and farmers began commercially breeding piranhas instead. In only about 6 months, the fish could reach roughly 800 to 900 grams in weight and grow to around 10 to 12 inches long. But by around 2005, some farmers began reporting something very different. In ponds containing piranhas, smaller species such as mola, darkina, punti, chanda, colisa, and freshwater shrimp were declining or disappearing. Researchers later warned that if piranhas escape from enclosed fish farms into natural waterways, small native fish species could become direct targets. Then, in March 2008, the government of Bangladesh banned the import and farming of piranhas. Bangladesh's national report submitted to the Convention on Biological Diversity also confirmed that ban. In only about 8 years, a fish once viewed as a promising commercial aquaculture species had become a potential threat to native aquatic life. So if someone ever really released thousands of piranhas into rice fields to hunt snakes, the biggest question probably would not be, how many snakes could they kill? It would be, how long would it take us to realize that we had just created a problem even harder to control than the snakes themselves? The safest and most predictable solutions often have nothing to do with changing nature in the first place. Instead, they usually focus on changing human behavior. If the problem is that people are constantly coming into contact with snakes, then that risk can be reduced without resorting to extreme measures. Much of the danger comes from working conditions and a lack of information, and even basic precautions can make a real difference. Protective clothing, better lighting at night, and small adjustments to the way people work in the fields can all help. Just as important, people need to know how to avoid dangerous encounters and what to do if they are actually bitten by a snake. But there is another serious problem. Antivenom is in short supply, and instead of going to a doctor, many people still turn to traditional healers. So in the end, the focus shifts away from searching for some new predator and toward improving the very system that has allowed this problem to persist. Improve the basic conditions, and the situation becomes much more manageable. In 2018, the WHO worked with Bangladesh's Directorate General of Health Services, or DGHS, to distribute around 5,000 doses of antivenom nationwide and train 352 doctors at medical college hospitals. They were taught how to identify venomous snakes, administer antivenom, manage complications, and treat the surge in snakebite cases that often follows flooding. But perhaps the most remarkable scene can be found at Chittagong Medical College. Inside the Venom Research Center, scientists do not kill the cobras, they keep them alive. By 2022, around 300 snakes were being kept there for research. Each animal was carefully restrained, its fangs positioned over a collection device, and its venom extracted directly for scientific study. Something that once terrified local communities was now becoming the raw material used to save the lives of the very people it could bite. Bangladesh later expanded this approach to a national scale. The National Snakebite Strategy and Costed Action Plan 2023-2028 includes 4 objectives, 27 strategies, and 76 groups of actions, with a projected budget of about 156.98 crore taka, equivalent to nearly $18.5 million. Around 60% of that budget is dedicated to treatment, especially antivenom. The plan also aims to bring treatment closer to farmers. Each Upazila health complex is expected to maintain a stock of at least 20 vials of antivenom, enough for roughly 2 courses of treatment before the peak snakebite season begins around March and April. Antivenom provided through the public health system is also intended to be available free of charge. The Venom Research Center alone is expected to receive around 40.72 crore taka, nearly $4.8 million, to expand its facilities, staffing, and research into locally occurring snake venoms. And perhaps Bangladesh's biggest lesson became clearest during the wave of panic surrounding Russell's vipers in 2024. As frightened residents began hunting and killing snakes, Bangladesh's Ministry of Environment delivered the exact opposite message. Do not try to catch them yourself. Do not kill them yourself. If a snake is found, people are advised to call 333 or contact the Forest Department for assistance. Snakes do not exist in isolation. In nature, their populations are already kept in check by an entire network of predators, including mongooses, monitor lizards, forest cats, eagles, and cranes. If humans disrupt that network by indiscriminately eliminating one species, the result may simply be another problem. Bangladesh is therefore moving in a different direction. The National Snakebite Strategy also proposes the creation of snake rescue teams, with the long-term goal of establishing at least one team in every district under the Forest Department. After all, the solution is not to bring in piranhas and start a war between 2 predators, nor is it to wipe out every snake in the fields. The solution is to keep a safe distance from them, protect the ecosystem so it can regulate itself, and make sure that when a bite does happen, the victim still has a chance to make it home. Because sometimes, the smartest way to defeat nature is to stop trying to defeat it. Bangladesh's battle with venomous snakes is far from over. Climate change, flooding, and expanding human settlements could continue to bring people into contact with snakes more often. But the lesson here is clear. Introducing an even more dangerous predator into nature does not necessarily solve the problem. Sometimes it simply creates a new one that is even harder to control. So what do you think? If piranhas were actually released into these flooded fields, would they help reduce the number of venomous snakes, or would they become another ecological disaster? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoy stories about people trying seemingly impossible solutions to deal with the challenges of nature, subscribe to the channel, because in the next video, we will explore even stranger methods people are using to control and push back venomous snakes without bringing in piranhas.